Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Today, we're diving into the career of, well, a comedic chameleon, I guess you can say, Ricky Gervais.
Oh, yeah.
From music to radio,
Yeah.
stand-up to television, children's books, to even, yes, the Golden Globes. Gervais really left his mark on almost every part of the entertainment world.
He has. He really has.
So, buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride.
What gets me about Gervais is just how easily he goes from one thing to the next. Like, most people know him for his cringe comedy, but I think people overlook how much he's actually done.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, did you know his career didn't start on a stage or even a screen? It started in music back in the 80s.
Yeah.
He was part of a new wave duo called Siona Dancing.
Really?
Yeah. They even had a top 10 hit
Wow.
in Philippines.
That's amazing. I did not know that.
It's true. The song was called More to Lose, and it's, well, it sounds nothing like the Gervais we know today.
Oh, I bet.
But you could hear that early creative energy in it. And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
a hint of that subversive humor that would make him famous.
I'd like to hear it.
Should we give our listeners a taste?
Yeah.
Why not? It's a bit of a time capsule
Oh,
from the 80s.
right?
Pure 80s synth pop. Hard to believe that's the same guy who'd go on to make a career out of awkward silences
Yeah.
and cringeworthy social commentary.
Wow.
Oh. And speaking of unlikely career moves, before his own music career took off, he managed Suede?
No way.
Yeah.
The Britpop icon?
The Britpop icons? That's right.
That's pretty cool.
Gervais just has a knack for spotting talent,
Yeah,
even if it's not his own.
that's true.
But his path from pop music to comedy, it wasn't as random as it might seem. His radio career was a big stepping stone.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. It was at XFM where he developed his comedic voice,
Yeah.
his writing, and it's where he formed some pretty key partnerships that would shape his career. I mean, hello, Stephen Merchant.
Right.
And Karl Pilkington.
Of course.
That's where those iconic duos were born.
I mean, XFM was like a comedic laboratory for him.
Yeah.
Like, he had the freedom to just experiment, to push boundaries, and to find his rhythm as a writer and a performer. It was on the radio that he first started to explore that awkwardness of everyday life, that cringe humor that he's known for.
It's amazing how those early radio bits, those seemingly off-the-cuff conversations, would become some of the most groundbreaking comedy of the 21st century.
I know.
Speaking of groundbreaking comedy, we can't talk about Gervais without mentioning the show that launched him into the stratosphere, The Office.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to overstate the impact of that show, both in the UK and with the American adaptation.
Totally.
Okay, real talk. Before we go any further, you know the drill. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the world of Ricky Gervais, hit that subscribe button to catch all our future episodes. You won't want to miss a single one. Now, back to The Office. What do you think was so revolutionary about it?
Well, on the surface, it was just this simple mockumentary about office life. But Gervais and Merchant, they captured something special. They captured that quiet desperation, the awkward silences, the cringeworthy moments that we all experience them, but you don't really see them on screen.
That's so true. They made us laugh at how absurd it all is, but also, you know, made us cringe because we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
Because deep down, we've all been a David Brent at some point.
Totally. And Gervais is brilliant as David Brent. It's like this perfect balance of comedy and pathos. Like, you laugh at how much he wants to be liked, but you also feel a bit sorry for him.
He's like that embarrassing uncle
Yeah.
who tries way too hard to be funny, but you still love him anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what makes The Office so relatable and so enduring. It's a show that, even though it's set in a specific environment, it speaks to something much deeper about all of us.
I think so.
About our shared awkwardness, our anxieties, and just, you know, our need for connection.
Yeah, it really does.
And don't forget the ripple effect it had on television comedy. It spawned a whole new wave of cringe comedy, from Parks and Recreation to Modern Family. It's hard to imagine, like, a show like Curb Your Enthusiasm existing without The Office.
That's a really good point. The Office showed that. People actually wanted awkward humor. They wanted characters who had flaws and were relatable, and they wanted situations that were funny, but also kind of cringy.
Yeah.
It really opened the door for a new kind of comedy that was more grounded in reality, more observational, and maybe even a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And speaking of uncomfortable, Gervais didn't stop with The Office. He went on to create another brilliant cringe comedy, Extras, which took that awkward humor to a whole new level. But, you know, What I find really fascinating about Extras is,
What's that? How he uses those celebrity cameos to just completely satirize the idea of fame. It's not just about getting big names on the show. It's about using them to show how weird the whole celebrity thing is.
totally, it's like he's holding a funhouse mirror up to Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, distorting their faces just enough to show all those insecurities,
Right,
the
that-
ego trips,
Yeah.
the just plain strangeness of it all.
Yeah,
Like, remember that episode with David Bowie?
of course.
Gervais' character, Andy Millman?
Yeah.
He's trying so hard to impress him.
Yeah.
But Bowie's just sitting there, totally cool. And he writes this hilarious but really cutting song
Yeah.
about Andy right to his face.
No, it's brutal, but brilliant. I can totally see the influence of Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm in that. It's not just about the jokes. It's about those awkward moments that make you squirm.
Oh, yeah. Gervais and David, they have that same sense of humor, that fascination with social rules and what happens when you break them.
Yeah.
But
I think with David, he often plays the guy who doesn't get it, you know, the one causing the problems.
right.
But Gervais' characters, they're usually the ones being humiliated.
It's like he's putting himself in those awkward situations on purpose.
Yeah.
Like it's some kind of self-punishment.
I could see that.
But
Mm.
even when they're being total fools, there's something about his characters that you root for them.
I know what you mean.
There's a vulnerability there.
Yeah.
This need to be liked that I think really connects with people.
It does.
And that's what makes his comedy, you know.
Yeah.
Even though it's often cringy, it's also kind of heartwarming.
It is.
Because you can tell he just wants to connect with people.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, look at me, I'm a mess, what?
Yeah.
We're back. Totally.
But let's move on to another big part of Gervais's career, the Ricky Gervais Show podcast. For a lot of people, that was their introduction to Karl Pilkington and his wonderfully bizarre way of looking at the world.
It's amazing to think that that podcast got them into the Guinness Book of World Records for the most downloads. It really captured something at the time.
It did.
You could argue it really helped make podcasts popular. Absolutely. It was like lightning in a bottle. You had Gervais and Merchant, these really experienced comedic minds, riffing off of Pilkington's, completely unfiltered and often nonsensical ideas.
Yeah.
It was pure comedic chaos.
It was. Pilkington became this unlikely comedic icon.
Yeah.
Like the everyman philosopher with all these bizarre theories about the world, and he was totally serious about them.
Yeah. It was like watching a thought experiment in action.
I love that.
With Gervais and Merchant both pushing him
Uh-huh.
and trying to understand him.
Yeah.
Oh. Do you remember that conversation they had about the origin of the word flange?
Of course.
Classic Pilkington.
Yeah.
He was convinced that the word came from someone looking at Mookie's backside
Oh.
and saying, look at the flange on that!
It's so absurd, but it's hilarious.
Yeah. And that's the magic of Pilkington. He has this childlike curiosity, this willingness to question everything. And in doing so, he shows us just how absurd the world really is.
Yeah. He's the ultimate outsider. He's the voice of unreason in a world that's obsessed with logic.
Right.
And Gervais, with his sharp wit, he's the perfect foil for him.
Yeah.
He prods Pilkington and gets him to talk more about his weird theories, much to the delight of everyone listening.
And that dynamic duo, or should I say trio, they didn't stop with the podcast. They took their unique brand of comedic torture on the road with An Idiot Abroad.
Oh, yeah. What a great idea. Taking Karl Pilkington, who hates to travel and doesn't trust anything outside of his comfort zone, and sending him to some of the most fascinating places in the world.
You could see how much Gervais was enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
Setting up these elaborate trips, knowing Pilkington would be miserable.
And the best part is, Pilkington knew what was happening.
He did.
But he still went along with it.
He did.
They had this weird relationship. It was like a cartoon.
Yeah.
With Gervais as the puppet master and Pilkington as this grumpy puppet.
But a lovable puppet.
Yes. And through Pilkington, we get to see the world in a new way. With wonder, bewilderment, and disgust.
It's true. But An Idiot Abroad wasn't just about laughs. There were moments of real beauty and insight. As Pilkington, you know, despite all his complaining, found himself connecting with people from different cultures.
Yeah.
And experiencing the world in a way he never thought he would.
It was a reminder that even the most cynical people can be surprised by the world if they just step inside their comfort zone.
That's true.
And that even in the most unlikely situations, you can find real human connection.
Absolutely. But Gervais' work, it goes way beyond those collaborations with Merchant and Pilkington. He's written books, directed films, done stand-up comedy, hosted award shows.
He really has done it all.
It's like he needs to be creative
Yeah.
all the time. He pushes himself into new things,
Yeah.
never gets too comfortable,
I can see that.
always looking for the next challenge.
Right.
And speaking of challenges, let's talk about those Golden Globes hosting gigs.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to make people mad,
Oh, no.
especially in Hollywood.
He doesn't care who he offends.
Not at all. He flips the whole idea of an award show on its head. Instead of praising celebrities, he makes fun of them.
It's true.
It's like he's saying, oh, you think you're so special. Let's all have a laugh at your expense.
And people get so upset.
They do. Some love it. Others hate it. But either way, he gets everyone talking, which is something most award shows can only dream of.
He knows how to get attention.
He does.
He pushes the right buttons to get people talking.
Absolutely.
It's risky, but it's worked out well for him.
But it's not just about being shocking. His jokes are smart.
Oh, yeah.
He's not just making fun of people to be mean.
Right.
He's using humor to point out hypocrisy, to challenge this crazy world of celebrity, and to remind everyone, especially the famous ones, not to take themselves too seriously.
He's a master at that.
He is.
Using humor to make us look at ourselves
No.
and face some uncomfortable truths.
And sometimes, the best way to get people to listen is to make them laugh.
Even if they're laughing at themselves.
Exactly. He's like that jester in a king's court, making fun of the king and queen, reminding them they're not gods.
I like that.
And that's refreshing.
Right.
Especially in a world where we put celebrities on a pedestal. He reminds us that they're just people. They make mistakes,
They're flawed.
just like us.
Yeah.
By showing us their flaws,
Yeah.
he makes them more relatable,
He does.
even if it's through their embarrassing moments.
It's true.
It's a tough thing to do, to be funny,
Yeah.
but not offensive.
It is.
And he doesn't always get it right.
No.
He's been accused of being mean,
Right.
of picking on people who are already struggling,
Yeah.
of going too far.
And those are fair criticisms.
They are.
But you can't ignore what he's done.
Right.
He's changed how we see award shows. He's made people think. And he's started conversations that might not have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
He's made us question how we feel about celebrities.
That's true.
And how power works in that world.
And two, let's not forget, underneath all the cynicism and the shark humor, there's a real heart to Gervais's work.
Oh, absolutely.
He's passionate about animal rights, and he uses his platform to bring attention to causes he cares about.
That's true.
It's a side of him we don't always see,
No, we don't.
but it's important. It shows his compassion and his desire to make the world better, even if he does it in his own way.
He's a good example of how humor can be used for good.
It can.
And that even someone who seems cynical can actually care a lot.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Ricky Gervais, one thing's clear. He's a force of nature.
He is.
He's made us laugh, he's made us cringe, he's made us think, and he's definitely made us talk.
He's left his mark on comedy
He has.
and pop culture.
For sure.
Whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny his impact,
Right.
his ability to connect with people.
He's a true original,
Ah,
and I can't wait to see what he does next.
come either.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the career of one of those fascinating and polarizing figures in entertainment.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep laughing, and don't be afraid to be awkward.
See you on the next deep dive.